Alrighty, we are pleased to be joined today by a gal that is from Winnipeg, Manitoba. She made history in 2016 when she became the first Canadian female to win a NASCAR sanctioned race in the U.S. She's a race car driver, and boy, do we got a good guest on today, Amber Balcaen. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Did I say your name correctly?
Close. Balcaen.
Balcaen. Okay. Now we're off to a good start then. Okay, so first off, how are things with you? What's going on? What's up?
It's going good. We just finished our 2021 racing season. So I'm actually in Regina, Saskatchewan right now, here for my fiance Jordan's football season with the Saskatchewan Roughriders. I'm just now working on putting together my 2022 season. So the work really doesn't stop when you're a driver, because when you're not racing, you're finding sponsorship and putting those things together for the next season.
Awesome. Okay, so as we always do in this podcast, Amber, we backtrack a bit to the younger days, and I want to know, what were you doing growing up in Winnipeg? Sports, hobbies. Break it down for us.
Yeah, I did pretty much every sport. I was in cheerleading, dance, volleyball, gymnastics, horseback riding, like pretty much everything I can think of, and racing. But racing was the one that I always loved to do the most, and the one that I was best at. I was very mediocre at all the other things. So kind of decided that, if racing was going to be it, I had to go all in on that. So at 10 years old, I started racing in go-karts at local dirt tracks, actually in North Dakota. Nice. And then I moved into mini sprints and raced them locally at Red River Co-op Speedway, now called Victory Lane Speedway, which is in Winnipeg, just outside of Winnipeg in St. Norbert, Manitoba. And did that for quite a few years, and then raced 410 sprint cars in North Dakota, Minnesota, all the northern states. And that's kind of when I caught the eye of the NASCAR diversity program. I was, winning and doing well. And they kind of said, what do you think of NASCAR? And, being from Winnipeg and Canadian, NASCAR is not extremely popular here. And just being, growing up in a dirt track racing family, my dad still races dirt late models to this day. My grandfather raced dirt sprint cars. So my whole family just raced locally at dirt track level. And so to think that I could be in NASCAR at a national level was just something never really even thought. I mean, I thought of it, but I just didn't think it was realistic. But I wanted to give it a go.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I was telling my family and, the other guys that are on the podcast, it's cool because we talked to a lot of PGA guys and, National Hockey League players, you name it, right? And to talk to someone that races, in NASCAR, like, that's super intriguing. So I have a lot of questions about, how you got going. And I mean, did you watch Talladega Nights a couple of times and you were pumped about it? Or, I mean, because where did the passion come for, just to drive race cars?
Yeah, I think when you're a race car driver, even when I was 10 racing go-karts, you have a respect for all forms of motorsports. And there wasn't a Sunday that I woke up and didn't hear the sounds of cars on the TV of NASCAR. So it was always in my family, and we always watched racing. We always raced. Every single weekend, if I wasn't racing, I'd be with my dad watching him race. So Nice. It's really been my entire life, and I love it so much. There's nothing that I would trade for it. And I call it my addiction. Racing is my addiction. And I knew that I wanted to do it for as long as I could.
That's awesome. So how does it all work? Like, do you sign up at the local derby track? Walk us through the process of starting out a racing. And because again, I'm a hockey and golf background. It's, we go to the local golf club and, we check the websites. Just walk us through how you got into your first race. And then maybe for people that are listening that, maybe they're 10, 12, 13, and they want to start racing.
Yeah, so getting into racing is quite a lot different than other stick and ball sports because it's uncommon. And not only that, but you need a lot of financial backing to be able to do it, where, they say hockey is an expensive sport with all the gear that they have to purchase. But, even to purchase a go-kart is a couple $1,000s. And then you move up to mini sprints and it can be $20,000. And then you move up to 410 sprints and it could be $100,000. And now I'm looking for millions and millions of dollars. So it's to not only be a good driver, but also have that financial backing. That's what makes it a little tougher, but it's not impossible either. So at 10 years old, my dad said, if you want to race, you have to do it on your own. That means getting the sponsorship to
Wow.
pay for your go-kart, and also working on the go-kart as well. So as far as getting into racing, that's probably the number one question I get asked in my DMs and stuff is, how do I get into racing? I always say, go to your local track, mingle, watch the races, meet the drivers, ask questions. And then when it comes to sponsorship, look in your smaller circle. Who are the people that you already know that have businesses, and do their demographics kind of align with racing? Do they believe in you as a driver, as a person? And for me, I really utilize my story as, being a Canadian female and having to work really hard, where most people in my position come from tons of money. Racing is a very, very wealthy sport.
Yeah.
And I don't have that financial backing. So I had to work 10 times harder to reach out to all these companies, be able to have these business meetings with major CEOs of major companies, and learn the business side of the sport almost before I could learn the driving side of the sport. So like I said, it's not impossible. It's difficult as you move up the ranks. But for a local dirt track racer, you really want to stay within your community for sponsors and just try to get in the car as often as you can.
Okay, well, that led right into my next question, was talking about sponsorships, and then this is also a further that question. So, a company covering your expenses for, let's just talk about your car and how does that work? So, are you going door to door? Well, let's just say you're in a race and your tires blow out. Are you paying that out of your pocket, or is that a sponsor? Yeah, like your windshield gets smashed up. I don't know. Walk us through, like, are you going to the
Yeah.
local subway and hey, can you sponsor my race car?
Yeah, at the local level, it's kind of funny because another question I get asked a lot is, oh, do you have insurance on your car? Well, no, race cars don't have insurance. So anything we break, we have to pay for. That's why good sponsors come in handy. So you kind of budget yourself, even at a local level, you budget the season, what you think it's going to cost, your tires, your fuel, your maintenance, and then the possibility of crashes, which it's not even a possibility, it's inevitable. It's not when it happens. It's not if it happens, when it happens. It's just part of the sport. So you kind of have to budget all of that at the beginning of the year, because at the end of the day, it does rely all on you. So you have to make sure you're set up to, be okay by the end of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so when you're in races, when you first started out, these next two questions kind of you mentioned earlier a little bit, but is it all co-ed, or is it, is there a men's division? Is there women's? Is it, mixed? Like, walk us through that process. Like I said earlier, maybe there's young listeners like now listening and want to get into it, or even people that are older.
Yeah, so the best part about racing, or one of the greatest parts that I think is so cool, is it is a sport that men and women can compete at the same level all the way up into the NASCAR Cup Series. So it doesn't matter if you're racing go-karts, if you're racing, the World of Outlaws, like a higher local series, or if you're racing NASCAR. Men and women can compete against each other at all levels. And I think that is so amazing, because they did make a women's league in more of the F1 version. It's called the W Series. So that is an all-female league. But other than that, it's co-ed. It's men and women. And when I was racing mini sprints, I was a 16-year-old girl racing against 30 to 40-year-old men. So it doesn't matter your age. It doesn't matter your gender. The car doesn't know if I have lipstick on or not. It just knows how I'm connecting with it. And that's the key to being a good driver, is having that good connection with your car, learning your car, and just developing the skills. And again, a gender, race, none of that matters.
Absolutely. Okay, so and trying to touch on, you mentioned earlier your first race. How did it go? Where was it? And maybe even further, touch on how you got started again.
Yeah, so my first race was in Fargo, North Dakota, in a go-kart, and I actually got second. I almost won my first race, I was like, all right, like I can do this. I'm good at this. I got this. So, and then the second race I ended up winning. So it's more fun when you're winning, of course. Doesn't matter what sport you're playing.
Absolutely.
And yeah, how I got the start was, I watched up from my dad, watching my dad, my uncles, my grandpa didn't race at that time anymore, but my cousins all raced. So I got to see it all firsthand, and I knew that I wanted to do it. For years, I begged my dad to let me, because at like 4 years old, I wanted to be racing, but my dad's like, no, it's, a huge time commitment. It costs a lot of money. And I never stopped asking. So finally my mom was like, she's not going to stop. So we got to let her do this.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's cool though. So this next one here, and I like to think I do my homework on all our guests, but what is the, the focus and the time and the practice you put in? Because I think these race cars go 200 miles an hour. Like, it gives me anxiety watching it, let alone you're driving a car and you watch on TV and they're going, the Indy 500 and they're ripping around. Like, for people watching, I mean, that are uneducated, it's a little intense, right? I mean, you're watching these cars just go around and around and around at 200 miles an hour. Like, walk us through like your preparation for, what do you call an event?
Yeah. So again, racing is different than most stick and ball sports in the way that we can't just hop on a field and practice. For us to practice, it can cost $10, $20, $30,000 for one day of practice. So, when you're a basketball player, you go to the court and you shoot as many basketballs as you can and try to get as many in. And that's how you practice and develop your skills to get better for the game.
For $0.
For $0,
Yeah.
essentially. Maybe you spend $100 or $200 on a new pair of sneakers, but that's about it.
Yeah.
My safety equipment alone, my helmet is $5,000, my Hans device is $2,000, my suit's $2,000. Like, it's $10,000 just to get the safety equipment to do what I'm doing. Wow. So to not be able to have that practice makes you get creative. So you have to figure out other ways that you can try to develop your skills to prepare for that race. So for example, this season, I was racing on the West Coast. It was extremely hot, like 110 degrees Fahrenheit. That's in the 40s Celsius, just extremely hot. Being from Canada, not acclimated to that type of weather. Yeah. So I would run hills wearing a hoodie in 110 degrees to get my body used to that dehydration, that depletion. And then, since hydration was so important, like I would drink Pedialyte the day before races, Pedialyte the day up, tons of water. I would drink pickle juice to keep the sodium in, just all sorts of things. You learn little tricks along the way. I'm in the gym pretty much 5-6 days a week, depending on the time of season. Preparing for the race, I was working out twice a day for every single day for 75 days. And then as far as how we kind of get acclimated in the car, we utilize something called iRacing. So it's like a racing simulator, very similar to gaming, but the tracks are actually identical to the actual tracks we'll be at. So it's a good visual tool for us. You can't beat the feeling of being in a race car, but you can at least get the visual idea of the racetracks. So I use that to prepare. And then usually we do have a couple tests before the season. So for example, like Daytona, we test in January and then race in February. So we will have one test for that just to practice drafting. I've never been in a draft before. So, we need to feel what that feels like and what the airflow does to the car and how we react to that. And reading, I read a lot. I watch a lot of videos. So whatever races that I know I'm going to be competing in, I'll watch last year's race of it just to figure out the line, talk to my crew, talk to my spotters just to learn more about the track. And so a lot of watching video, iRacing, working out. And then I also read a lot of books as well. So with racing, because especially NASCAR, these races are super long and it takes intense focus. And not only are you physically drained, but you're mentally drained. So I read a lot of mental books to just make sure, my confidence is there, my mental is there, and I'm able to be focused for all 150, 200 laps for hours on end.
That's crazy because this leads into my next question. And, what would, a pre-race ritual preparation? I mean, what are you doing the day of the race? But then to further that, so when you race, what's your schedule like too? So this is kind of a jumbled question. Like, let's talk about the day of the race, what you're doing, and then what's a season schedule like for you?
Yeah. So this year my schedule was from March to October. And I did 23 races spread out in that time. Next year, it would look something like February to November. Again, about 20 races spread out with a couple practice days in between there. We don't get as many practice. I would like to practice every week, but again, because it costs so much, we have to budget accordingly. Yeah. And so a race day for me would just look like getting up, depending on the schedule. This year's schedule, we had to be at the track up around 11 a.m. So, wake up at 8:39, I like Starbucks, get a bagel, carb load in the morning. So, and proteins, I usually get egg bites and a bagel. Like I said, the night before, I'm hydrating with Pedialyte. or any like type of electrolyte beverages, lots of water, pickle juice for the sodium. Next morning's the same way. I'm mixing my water and my Pedialyte, drinking that, get to the track, we sign in. Usually we'll do kind of meet and greet with sponsors. And then, it's time to practice. And we practice, and then we qualify, and then we sign autographs, and then we race. And then the day is usually done around 10, 11 p.m.
Wow. That's a loaded schedule. That's nuts. That's crazy. So there must have been some incredible cities, thus far that you've gone to, go to race. Where have you all been?
So this year I was mainly on the West Coast, so California, Nevada. Last year I was mainly on the year before I was in the Midwest. The year before I was mainly on the East Coast, and then next year, if everything goes according to plan, I'll be all over the United States, Midwest, South, North, East, West, everywhere. So as far as a favorite place, I mean, to me, Daytona has always been like, it was one of the first NASCAR tracks I went to as a kid, and it's been on my bucket list to race. So I think that's going to be the most exciting one for me. Racing in Vegas this year was really neat. Got to, stay on the strip and then race is pretty cool. So
yeah, that sounds like no fun at all. Okay,
I mean,
so
I didn't drink or gamble or anything that people do in Vegas because I raced the next day, but it was still a neat atmosphere.
So I mentioned off the top, in 2016, you made Canadian history when you won and became the first Canadian female to win a NASCAR event. Walk us through that moment, how special that was for you, your family. You mentioned your dad was a big time racer, still races. We love these kind of stories. So walk us through that.
Yeah, so 2016 was my first year on pavement. I transitioned from dirt to pavement, and that transition is a lot more difficult than most people realize. I went from a really lightweight open wheel car that you basically put to the floor and go nuts to something that requires a ton of discipline. It's very technical. It's very, your braking, your throttle, all your points have to be precisely to the millimeter. It's completely different. So learning that that transition was difficult, but I still knew that if I could develop my skills through the season, I should be able to win by the end of the year. And luckily that was able to happen. And the first race was not so good. And then I would get fifth, and then fourth, and then third, and then second, and then finally got that win. So it felt really good. That was my goal going into it. I knew that if I did accomplish that I would make history. And that's kind of my goal into everything. Like next year, if I can make everything happen, and able to win in that series, I'd be the highest winning female in all of NASCAR. So wow. I always have I set these goals towards, the beginning of the season, and it was difficult to achieve, but I achieved it, which was great.
Absolutely. That's awesome. Yeah. Like I said, we love to hear those stories, and they're super cool and fascinating for sure. Amber, I don't know where you want to go with it. I'm going to lead it into you. You had a crash. I mean, I didn't even write anything down on this because I'd rather you explain it. And if you're comfortable doing that, then by all means.
Yeah, absolutely. So in 2016 was, a really great year of racing. And I kind of thought after I won and made history that all the sponsors would come to me and things would be really easy. And that just wasn't how it happened. So the next couple of years, I actually really struggled to find sponsorship to be able to move up the ranks of NASCAR. That NASCAR series that I was racing was called the NASCAR Wheel and All American Series. So it was a local level NASCAR racing. Yeah. And then, so I struggled to get sponsorship the next couple of years, and COVID hit, and that hurt even more. All the sponsors I had lined up fell through. So I was trying to figure out what can I do to keep in the car and still get to race as much as I can. And so for me, that meant going back to dirt track racing. Dirt track racing is a lot less expensive, and I would be able to race more. Yeah. So I went to race these cars called midgets, which were very, very similar to what I used to race, except it doesn't have that big wing on top. Okay. They drive quite a bit different, but with dirt, if you're in an open wheel car, you can kind of adjust pretty easily. So I raced a season of what they're called midgets, and towards the end of the season, I was really feeling comfortable in the cars, and I was, I don't actually know what happened exactly, but I had a really, really bad crash. Flew up into the air, flipping, landed in a fence. I don't remember anything that happened. I don't remember how it happened. I woke up in a fence. I could hear paramedics around me, and then I've like passed back out. And then the next time I woke up, I was in the ambulance on the stretcher, and I couldn't feel my legs or my arms. So I thought I was paralyzed. And so I was yelling to the paramedics. I'm like, I can't feel my arms. I can't feel my legs. Like, I'm paralyzed. I'm paralyzed. And then they shot me with adrenaline. And a couple minutes later, I could start getting the feeling back in my fingertips and my toes, and then my hands and my feet. And then it all started coming back. But I couldn't remember the phone, my password to my phone. I couldn't remember anything. I've never experienced that type of like body shock before. And so went to the hospital. I had 2 collapsed lungs, burns to my arms, severe concussion, and really I was just throwing up for days on end. I couldn't move. I ended up being in the hospital for 3 days. I probably should have went longer, but I just wanted to get home and get into my bed and be taken care of by Jordan. So yeah, it took me 2 months to recover. It was about 2 weeks before I could like lift my arms above my shoulders. Took me about 2 weeks to walk more than a couple minutes. And at that point, it was when I was in the ambulance, when I got to the hospital, I was able to FaceTime my parents and my fiance, and I said, I'm done racing. Like, I'm done. And that was the first time I've ever said it in my life. And I said, it's not worth it. You know, I'm getting older. Jordan and I were supposed to get married, and I couldn't even walk down the aisle if I'm paralyzed from racing. And it's just, I don't know if this is worth it anymore. And maybe this is my sign that I need to be done. And then 2 days later, I said, you know what I said before? Like, I was just kidding on that. I didn't mean it. So once I talked to doctors, I'm like, if I can get better and get back in the car, I will. So two months later, I was back in the car.
Wow. That's incredible. So that's a quick turnaround, 2 months. And you went through a lot. Wow.
Yeah, I was concussion too. So I wasn't allowed to watch TV, be on my phone. So it was just a lot of just being alone in a dark room, which wasn't that fun. But thankfully, I had gotten a lot stronger mentally going through what I'd been through the last couple of years with sponsorships and stuff. So I was in a pretty good place mentally, which I'm thankful for, because a lot of athletes, when they do get injured, can get to really low places.
Well, that's good. And obviously, it shows just how mental tough you are, right? I mean, that's crazy. So it's good to hear that you're back and you're getting ready to go for the next season.
Yeah, and then this next season was this year, and had raced full time. Landed a really major sponsor, Icon Direct. They're out of Winnipeg, Winkler, Manitoba, which is really cool, and they sell RV parts. And so to have that type of year and have the worst crash of my life, and then the next year, have arguably one of the best racing seasons I've had with a major sponsor and getting to race for a major team on the NASCAR team on the West Coast it was a good turnaround for sure.
Absolutely. That's positive. Okay. So we got to ask, because we are a golf/sports podcast, what else do you do besides race cars? Do you golf at all?
And you know what? I'm actually a decent golfer. I don't golf often, but I am pretty good at it. I went on this TV show one time, Fins and Skins, with Henry Walsh.
Yeah.
And I hit the ball farther than he did. I couldn't believe it. And I made a really good putt. But no, I don't really golf that often. I'm trying to think. I don't really do that many sports, because I'm like, I'd love to go snowboarding, but I don't want to get hurt right before the season or something like that. So I do a lot of computer stuff. I'm very business forward. So just always working on my relationships with my sponsors and building new sponsorships. I love to go to the games here in Regina. That's probably like my thing that I like to do for fun. I love football. So football is definitely my favorite sport other than racing.
That's awesome. Well, the riders are pretty good too.
Yes.
And your fiance is a hell of a player. So
yeah.
Okay, let's go to our questions from the gallery, sponsored by Molson Coors. Coors Seltzers on a mission helping to restore fresh water to Canada's rivers through the Change the Coors Foundation. Enjoy the Coors Seltzer mixture pack with 4 great flavors: black cherry, mango, grapefruit, and lemon lime, and many more. Check out Molson today. Please drive responsibly and drink responsibly. Okay. Favorite part about racing a car? See how my notes are written down? Like, I'm just like so uneducated about the sport, but I learned a lot already thus far. So
Good, good.
favorite part about racing?
Uh, to me, it's just the feeling you get in the car when you're racing. There's nothing else you're thinking about other than how to make that car faster, how to be smoother, how to be more consistent, how to catch the guy in front of you, how to keep the guys behind you, how to make it through the whole race. You're so focused on what you're doing and you're so in the moment. And I think it's hard to fully be in the moment nowadays, especially with technology and everything.
Yeah.
And with racing, you're forced to be 100% in the moment. And I just love going fast.
I want to go fast, right?
Yeah.
Actually, here's a question. So when you just mentioned how to get in front of the next guy, so obviously, and I've watched Talladega Nights a million times. Like when they say slingshot, is that actually a thing? Like, can you put in a different gear and just go?
No, I wish it was that easy.
Okay, good to know. Can we talk about where your next race is, or no? That's not finalized yet.
Yeah, so this season just finished for me. So now I'm working towards next year.
Okay.
So now it's just a matter of me putting the sponsorship together so that I can move up into the next level. So hopefully within the next couple months, we'll have all that solidified and I'll be able to share with everyone.
Okay. Favorite TV show?
It depends on the day, usually. Right?
Fair enough.
Jordan, I just watched that Squid Games. Have you heard of that?
Don't tell me too much, but I heard it's good though. I heard it's a little intense.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just finished that yesterday, so that one's pretty crazy. It's a very, very girly show, but it's called Love Island.
Okay.
It just doesn't take a lot of brain cells to watch, and I just like it.
Okay. Favorite beverage after a race or a hot day or an off day for you?
Water, because I'm usually very dehydrated.
Okay.
Propel. And as far as alcoholic beverage, beer or wine.
Okay. How fast have you ever been going in your race car?
188 at Daytona. Wow. Mile an hour. So that's about, I think, 310 kilometers.
Oh, too fast. Next question is perfect then. How many speeding tickets do you have on the real road?
I think it's 7 or 8.
7 or 8?
Yeah, but I haven't had one in a really long time because I've been living in the States and they're harder to get in the States. Knock on wood.
That is true. Okay, 2 more for you. If a young listener today is listening, whether it's to be a professional athlete, a professional race car driver, a doctor, business entrepreneur, just some advice for them, that you could give them, obviously, for, what it takes to make it.
Yeah, absolutely. It sounds cheesy, but it's what I live by, and it's never give up. Like, don't give up. Things get tough. Things will challenge you. You're going to question why you're doing what you're doing. You're going to doubt yourself. But you really, at the end of the day, you have to believe in yourself and you have to believe in your potential, and never let other people's opinions dictate the decisions that you make for yourself. If you truly believe that this is what you want to do in life and you can be great at it, and you believe you can go far and you're willing to put in the work to make it happen, and are persistent and resilient about it, then you can really achieve anything. And that goes in sports and business, anything to do in life. It's just honestly never give up. Because if I had given up within the last 5 years, I wouldn't be where I am today. But I was just relentless with my pursuit of my potential. And I'm super happy I never gave up, because even though I went through a lot of struggle to get where I am today, right now I'm the happiest I've ever been. And now I can look at my life and be like, wow, I can't believe this is my life. But it took a long time to get there. So if you have one after your dreams, or you're thinking about it and you're, what the risk versus the reward, it's worth it.
Awesome. Okay. Last one for you. Where can, potential sponsors, where can they reach you? How do they get a hold of you, sponsor and deckle up the car?
Yeah, for sure. So you can find me on Instagram, Twitter at Amber Balcaen 10, also on TikTok at Amber Balcaen 10. My racing page on Facebook is Amber Balcaen Racing, and I also have a website, and you can email me on there through my website as well, and it's amberbalcaenracing.com.
I feel that you said your last name 5 times just to kind of give me a jab because I messed it up the first time. So no. Amber, this has been so much fun today. Appreciate you coming on. Best of luck in your 2021, 2022 season. And I hope we can do this again.
Thank you. Appreciate it.